All right, everyone. Well, the picture that's being portrayed by the Biden administration of its policies in the Middle East is everything's messed up, but don't worry, we're handling it. And, we're making progress. Diplomacy continues. Give us a little bit more time. There's an internal cable that's been released now, actually by Legacy Media CNN, link in the description, archived, of course, that shows a little bit of a different picture behind the scenes with regards to what U.S. diplomats, etc., and staff appear to believe about the situation on the ground. Comes from the U.S. Embassy in Oman, actually. So they've got a pretty good bead on the situation, diplomacy with regards to the Arab world, which is basically everything in the region other than Israel. And the situation apparently is deteriorating rapidly. The Biden administration is being blamed effectively for not moving quickly enough to pressure Jerusalem into a ceasefire. What I would point out is that there's no real methodology by which you can force that issue, which means basically, I guess, what the Arab world wants the U.S. to do is dump a shit ton of money on Israel, requisite that a ceasefire agreement be reached, so that you can have some sort of attempt at diplomatic progress. I've warned repeatedly that Israel is losing the optics war. That flip appears to have already happened in most of the world at this point, including in parts of Israel. There have been large protests by Jews in Israel against what's currently happening as well as in Jewish communities elsewhere. We've seen this before, by the way. I saw a video once where something like 10,000 Orthodox Jews in Long Island were holding a rally against Israel even existing because of some of the religious doctrines that they believe in. There are Jewish groups who do believe that the existence of the state of Israel at this time, absent the return of their Messiah, effectively, the coming of the next age, is actually illegal under God's law. So the situation's normal, all fucked up. Lots of infighting within and without various religions. The Arab world, though, remains a key player in this diplomacy, because unlike the United States, which is across the Atlantic, several continents away, those nations are in the actual region. They've become, over time, more wealthy because of oil and certain other exports as well. Of course, Egypt has a huge textile industry, Turkey as well. These are mainly industrialized nations, although mainly not post-industrial, which helps. It helps when you don't become post-industrial in some ways, I suppose. More and more leverage and influence and money has flowed into the region, and the U.S. right now is effectively telling them, shut up and wait. We'll do the best that we can, but things are moving slowly. Meanwhile, the majority of U.S. politicians are lock, stock, and barrel on the pro-war side, saying, no, don't even bother pressuring a ceasefire. Really, only the cringe fringe far lefters in the United States appear to really want a ceasefire at all. Them and then people like myself who simply don't want the world policing era to come back because we got a brief breather under Donald Trump. It's the first breather we had since, effectively, the Clinton era, and since then, it's nothing but war all the time. Under Obama, 100% of the days used president, state of war and expanding conflict. You remember the surge, for example. Obama draws down troop totals only to pile them back in. George W., one of the greatest warmongers of recent U.S. history, his daddy was the same way, although, the West was antagonized over the whole Kuwait thing. But if you are going to invade a country and cripple its military and push it into its own capital, it makes sense to just finish the job and not pull back at the last moment. It's the reason why Herbert Walker wasn't reelected, and it has nothing to do with the whole puking on the Japanese prime minister incident causing people to worry that the U.S. president had been poisoned in Tokyo. Although that was a dirt moment, I guess Sushi doesn't agree with him. It's too exotic for his tastes. He got some bad seaweed. When he swallowed the octopus, he thought it was dead, but it was still alive, and, tickled his throat, I guess. Biden has effectively already failed, though. The problem is that U.S. leadership is really the only thing that can rein Israel in. Again, you have a state that has a beefy military that is constantly posturing so that the people in the region think, hey, it's too high a risk to attack them. When U.S. leadership, therefore, is notoriously weak, as it is under Joe Biden, this is what you get. This is why people are worried about Taiwan being invaded. Nobody was worried when Trump was the president. If China had started rattling swords when Trump was the president over the issue of Taiwan, he probably would have said, fuck yourself. He managed to maintain diplomatically relatively good relations with Beijing while openly waging a trade war with China. If he can't do it, then nobody can. You get things like Ukraine. Under the leadership of Obama, you had the invasion of Crimea. Under Donald Trump, you had a restraint of Russian policy. I think it's because they were genuinely afraid of Trump and said, well, he's not rocking the boat. He's at least willing to talk to us. He's doing it the right way. That's the right way to conduct business with an adversarial other party, whether fully hostile or just, skeptical of your intent or something. You have to speak softly and carry a big stick. It's effectively a Theodore Roosevelt-style policy, and it works. We've seen it work before in U.S. history, before Trump, too. Peace through strength, effectively. It works. Biden's policy is effectively is effectively an inverse of this. Speak really loudly, but everyone knows you're full of bullshit. Piss people off and then be impotent to do anything when they lash out. That's Biden's policy. North Korea is popping off once again. Again, you didn't have this kind of bullshit problem for the years that Trump was president. You had a decline in hostility in parts of the world that are actual flashpoints. Did he rankle up the French? Yes, absolutely. Did he piss off the Brits? Yes. Did he have a relationship with Trudeau and his Canadian government that wasn't necessarily A grade? Yeah, of course. But nobody cares about being invaded by the Canadians. Nobody worries that Europe is going to devolve back into regional factional war or something like that. If you want to protect the nations that are on the fringe, that are sort of the buffer between West and East, you have to be able to conduct diplomacy the way Trump did, and Biden simply can't do that. This internal cable is absolutely damning. It shows that the internal beliefs of the people that are actually on the ground talking to the Arab nations in the region is, hey, this is getting pretty bad. There's a problem here. And that problem is that the administration doesn't know what the fuck it's doing, basically. So, keep that in mind during this next election. If you have 4 more years of Biden means 4 more years of the availability of wars to pop off and for potentially millions of people to die, leading possibly in the end to a nuclear showdown or something like that. A vote for Trump is a vote for actual diplomacy in these regions, I would say, if you want to save Palestinian lives, right? Or you also want to save Jewish lives. Re-elect Trump so that we can rein the situation in, because we'll actually be willing to put pressure on it. Because it's not going to happen under Biden. There'll probably be a ceasefire while he's still president, but it's going to take an awful lot longer. It'll be tenuous, and if he's re-elected, it'll eventually fall apart when he's in term number 2. That, by the way, is a guarantee. Because either that or this is going to escalate into a literal regional conflict. The Arab leaders will finally tire of it. No, I don't know. A dozen different countries decide to declare war on Israel, along with every other paramilitary group in the region for 1,000 miles. Well, Israel's got a sophisticated, decent military, but I don't think that they can face off against that kind of firepower. You see, it is no longer the 1970s. The level of technological superiority, troop readiness, etc., is more lopsided than it was before. I do not think that Israel would prevail. Therefore, being hit by millions and millions of infantrymen and thousands of planes and column after column of armor, Israel might invoke the Samson option. That would be bad. And so since I don't really want 50 million people to die and the whole region to be a crater, destabilizing the whole world economy, by the way, which Westerners really should be focused on as well, even if you don't give a shit what's going on in that part of the world. We're all interconnected through trade, and a lot of the world's energy comes from there. You don't want to pay, $20 per gallon for gas? You don't want to get absolutely gobsmacked, absolutely crushed? Probably best to maintain some degree of peace within that region. But that's not what the Biden administration is doing, and it's on them because, again, the U.S. administration effectively subjugates Israel. Effectively, it is a Middle Eastern attaché to the United States' own foreign policy. That's just the way that it is. Israel sometimes goes off and does its own thing. Of course, absolutely. And somehow I think I just zoomed myself in. But yeah, it's a situation normal. All fucked up. That's about all. Peace out.